Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Is silver still money? We're going to explore that topic as we discuss the relevancy of silver in the modern age. Silver and gold have been used as money for thousands of years. What you see before you here are coins that were minted by the United States Mint, and it is without a doubt that these were utilized in exchanges for goods and services in the years that they were minted. But something happened as time went on. We did remove ourselves from the gold standard and eventually stopped using silver in our coinage. So that means that these metals basically have been taken out of circulation, not only here in the United States, but around the world. So now, what about these metals? Are they still money? Are they still utilized as such? Or can they be still designated as such today? I think the answer to that question first lies with gold. That's why it's in the picture here, because these metals here, even though are not used as monetary metals in exchange in most places today, there are still occasions where they are. But by and large, they are pretty much accepted as money in most parts of the world, especially by governments themselves. Central banks hold gold, and they've held gold for quite some time and have protected it and guarded it. And in fact, recently, the Central Bank of Central Banks, the Bank of International Settlements, has designated gold as a Tier 1 asset. But nonetheless, it really doesn't circulate regularly as money. In fact, if you go back throughout history, you will find that gold did not circulate nearly as much as money as a method or means of exchange as silver did. But one can make the argument that gold, because these central banks do hold it and utilize it and exchange with it, that gold is still money. But before we really take a deeper dive into silver being money, let's first define what money is, because I think that's the foundation to our discussion here and understanding what exactly is the case and how we can designate or categorize this metal. Merriam-Webster defines money in several different ways, but the very first definition says that it's something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment, such as an officially coined stamped metal currency, money of account, or paper money. And so that is the first definition from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. You'll notice there, it's a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment. And I think there's something that's a commonality we're going to find in these definitions here. Money, as defined by dictionary.com, defines it in the first rate as any circulating medium of exchange, including coins, paper money, and demand deposits. There's another definition that says that gold, silver, or other metal in pieces of convenient form stamped by public authority and issued as a medium of exchange and measure of value. So the key here is they're tying this medium of exchange with a measure of value. Also says that any article or substance used as a medium of exchange, measure of wealth, or means of payment as checks and demand deposit. And so those are the ways that you can define money. There's something that's very fascinating and very interesting because it seems to be pretty basic and foundational, but we tie money as being tied to paper currency and other different coins and notes and the like, but this is defined by many people as money. And why is this note defined as money? Well, it's because it has a value tied to it. And that value tied to it is by government decree, hence why we call it fiat currency. But if you take away the government behind this note, well, it's a piece of cotton, essentially. That's what it is. But it's a piece of paper. It essentially is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, which means that this is legal tender for all debts, public or private. Outside of that, you have other coins that have been utilized as a form of exchange after 1964 that are basically copper clad or copper zinc, copper coated zinc, the form of our cent coins now since 1982. But those contain the same fiat designated value. But those are essentially, for all practical purposes, outside of that fiat designation, those are currency. So there is a difference between currency and money. Currency shares some values with money. For instance, it is a medium of exchange, as we saw in the definition. There's portable. It's for most purposes durable, but you can make an argument that paper currency does wear out very, very quickly. And those copper-coated zinc cents, well, those can corrode very easily, especially if they're in the ground. But they're divisible, which means that obviously they can be broken up into different denominations, and you can say that with cash. And as well as, checks or anything else that has that dollar designated value behind it. They're divisible. And they're also interchangeable. In other words, you can take $1 that I have and I can exchange it for another dollar that you have. They can both buy the same amount. But that's where the definition of similarity between money and currency ends. Because, again, we go back to our definitions of both dictionary.com and Merriam-Webster. What does it conflate with a medium of exchange? A measure of wealth or a store of value, a measure of value or wealth. That is the key difference. That is foundational. And I believe that that is what makes silver and gold, obviously, still money today. Now, you can make an argument that since it's not circulating, and by the way, there was a time when salt and seashells and other things were utilized as currency, well, they don't have the durability, and in some cases, they don't really have a divisibility, at least in the same ways, and they're not convenient. In other words, they're not portable in the same ways, especially if we need to use a whole lot of them, whereas silver definitely is. But it's not used today as currency. And so, because it's not utilized today as currency, you can almost take all of these different aspects away from it because it's not really recognized as such by the general public. But it doesn't mean that it can't be again in the future. And in fact, there are some cases where people want to bring back a gold or even in some cases a silver standard. And if that does happen, well, it can be utilized as money very quickly and very easily again. This is why I like to refer to silver as hibernating money. Essentially, it's a sleep, meaning that it can be awakened at any time. And for all practical purposes, in some cases, it really can still be utilized even today. Because right now, you have this particular coin, which is called NIFC. In other words, it's not intended for circulation, but it is a dollar coin currently minted by the United States government. It is an American silver eagle, and it is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, not only for the dollar-denominated value on its person, but for the even greater value of the silver contained therein. You see, silver has maintained a store of value for all intents and purposes for the most part throughout its history. It really doesn't go away, just as gold doesn't go away. And it is divisible, it is portable, and is utilized. In fact, there are people who can and do exchange goods and services with silver. We've seen it even here in this community. But for the most part, and for most transactions, for people around the country and the world, silver essentially is not utilized these days. And less so are fiat cash in the form of paper money and coins. So that is the thing to take into account here. But we also have to understand that here in the United States, gold and silver coins are designated as money from the Constitution, which still stands today. Article 1, Section 10 says that no state shall essentially coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver a tender in payment of debts. Make anything but gold or silver. So essentially, it is the sole money designation. In other words, that's why they call many times gold and silver lawful money. So in other words, are paper notes considered illegal? Us taking us off the gold standard, is that illegal? Well, that can be for another debate. But by and large, I believe that because of what the Constitution says specifically for our country, which is why what you see here is notated as constitutional money, well, I believe that is the one thing, or one of several things, especially you take into account history and epochs and different empires and nations that have been around, is why we can call silver still money today. It is asleep right now, but if people shake it long enough and yell loud enough, it could return, especially when you take into account the massive amounts of money printing, and by design, the dollar itself being devalued by at least 2% each year. Gold and silver, they can't be held down. They cannot be held down only by so much, and throughout time and the course of history, and they do preserve their wealth, preserve the wealth that's contained in the use value contained therein, otherwise known as intrinsic value. Its intrinsic value is constant for the most part, and that is something that should be taken into account. Now, there's one last final caveat to this with silver, especially compared to gold. Silver is viewed today, in today's society, more so than ever as a duality metal. In other words, you can make an argument for, in fact, if you look at the data that back this up, silver is utilized more in industrial applications and in the biomedical field and in technology than anything else today. There's a great portion that's utilized in jewelry as well. There's an even smaller amount that's used for coins, rounds, and bars for, quote, investment purposes. But make no mistake, aside from all of that, I believe silver maintains that role of hibernating money. It's money that is asleep to be awakened again, but nonetheless, I see it still as money because of that very fact, because it is a store of value, and it is still a means of exchange. In fact, even as such, when you buy it, you are trading fiat dollars for these silver coins, essentially based off of that intrinsic value, that base value that the markets see it in terms of supply and demand and other factors, and then you pay a premium for them, but you're buying it. Even if you do essentially buy it as a commodity, essentially these metals hold that role. So that's how I see it. Post your thoughts below, for or against. Be very curious to see. Hopefully I've made a compelling argument for silver still being money today. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.